Yo, what's up everyone? This is Ricard Fields here. I've done videos on some bands that I feel deserve more recognition in death metal and thrash metal. I think now I'm going to do a video on some bands that I feel deserve more recognition in traditional metal and power metal. Here's the first band I'm going to discuss. This is a band called Chastain, and this is their 1986 album, Ruler of the Wasteland. It is my favorite album of theirs. Chastain was a band that was on Shrapnel Records, which specialized in shred guitar playing, and the guitar player David Chastain did shred guitar solos, and the band played aggressive traditional metal in the vein of bands like Metal Church, and they're a great band. They are known for being one of the first female-fronted metal bands, and they're by far my favorite female-fronted metal band as well. The band was on Roadrunner Records briefly back in the early 1990s, and the lead singer Lever released her solo album on Roadrunner Records as well. Ruler of the Wasteland is my favorite album of theirs. Some of the highlights of that album would be the title track, as well as Fighting to Stay Alive, which is probably my favorite Chastain song, and One Day to Live and Children of Eden are some other really good songs on it. And some of their other albums are great too, like The Voice of a Cult and Seventh of Never. Excellent band. This is a band called Obsession, and this is their 1987 album, Methods of Madness. And the band Obsession played traditional power metal in the vein of bands like Judas Priest, their early 1980s material, and Armored Saint, and Methods of Madness is the second full-length Obsession album. They released an EP in 1984 called Martial Law, and in 1986 released their full-length debut, Scarred for Life. And Methods of Madness had songs such as Always on a Run, Panic in the Streets, Desperate to Survive, and the title track. And the band split up after this, and the lead singer Mike Becerra went on to play for Yngwie Malmsteen and Loudness, the Japanese band Loudness, when they actually hired an American vocalist for a couple of albums in the late 80s, early 90s. And then they reformed a number of years back and released a full-length album called Carnival of Lies since then. Methods of Madness is my favorite, but Scarred for Life is really good too. That had some great songs on it, like Bane Until They Bleed, Taking Your Chances, and the title track. Very good band. And this is a band called Sortilege. This is a band that's sang entirely in French. They're from France. And this is their 1986 album, L'Armes des Heroes, which is their final album. They released an EP in 1983, self-titled EP, and they released an album in 1984 called Metamorphose, and this is their 1986 album, L'Armes des Heroes. They split up very shortly after this album was released. They played traditional metal in the vein of groups like Iron Maiden and Queensryche, and they sang in French, but they did release English versions of Metamorphose and L'Armes des Heroes, titled Metamorphosis and Heroes' Tears. And they were released in Japan at least, but they didn't sell very well. However, the English versions of a few of the tracks do show up on this reissue of L'Armes des Heroes that I have here. And really good band. And this is a band called Hellstar, and this is their 1988 album, A Distant Thunder. Hellstar have a very good guitar solo work from their guitarist Andre Corbin and Larry Brannigan, and their vocalist James Rivera is known for playing in many traditional metal and power metal bands. He is a very good vocalist though. Their album Nosferatu is also a really good album that they've done. That had some great songs like Baptized in Blood, To Sleep Perchance to Scream, and the instrumental track Perseverance and Desperation. Some of the highlights on Distant Thunder include The King is Dead, Tyrannicide, and the album highlight Winds of War, which has a fantastic guitar solo section. Great band. This is a band called Tokyo Blade. Tokyo Blade was a part of the movement known as the NWO-BHM. They are a band that played metal in the vein of Iron Maiden on their first couple of albums, largely influenced by the first couple of albums that they did. And their self-titled album, Tokyo Blade, was released in 1983. That was a really good album. And they followed up with Night of the Blade, which is another very solid NWO-BHM release. Although the band took a more commercial direction after that. This album here, 1,000 Men Strong, is their most recent album, which displays more of a U.S. power metal sound, although Tokyo Blade is British. After the first two albums, they went in a more commercial direction, trying to get more of a pop-oriented sound on it. But the band went back in a heavier direction. They've had over 30 people play in the band at some point or another, and their discography is at times a bit confusing. But overall, they're a really good band. And some of the highlights on 1,000 Men Strong include the title track, Forged in Hell's Fire, and No Conclusion. They also re-recorded the song Night of the Blade on this album for a new vocalist. Really cool band. Definitely worth checking out if you're not familiar with their music. This is a band called Shock Paris, and this is their 1984 album Go for the Throat. Shock Paris played traditional metal in the vein of bands like Early Sabotage and Armored Saints, and Go for the Throat is their best album that they did. Some of the highlights on it would be the songs Chosen Ones, Cage Tiger, and Run But Don't Hide, along with the title track. Their 1987 album Steel and Starlight was a little more commercial sounding, but still a very solid album. Some of the highlights in that would be the title track, Tokyo Rose, and Lost Queen. Although although the other songs in the album are good too. They also made a music video for the song On Your Feet, which was featured in the 1987 sci-fi movie The Hidden. They released one more album after that called Concrete Killers before breaking up. Although the band has reformed since then, but only for live shows. They haven't released any new albums since then. Still, they're a very good band and definitely worth checking out if you're into the traditional metal sound of that era. And this is a band called Vicious Rumors, and this is their 1990 self-titled album. They released two albums before then, Soldiers of the Night and Digital Dictator, and then they ended up getting a major record label of Atlantic Records, although this version of the album is on Wounded Bird Records. They were on Atlantic back in the early 1990s. They released their self-titled album and Welcome to the Ball on Atlantic before they got dropped from the label. They've been around in some form or another since 1979, and only one band member, Jeff Thorpe, is a constant band member. And some of you may be familiar with that guitar player, Vinnie Moore. He actually played on the first Vicious Rumors album, Soldiers of the Night. That was a really good album of songs like the title track, March or Die, and Blistering Winds. And some of the highlights on this album here would be Don't Wait for Me, World Church, Ship of Fools, Hellraiser, and For All the Hunt. And overall, Vicious Rumors are a really good band, also worth checking out. I compared them to groups like Judas Priest and Armored Saint. And those were some traditional metal and power metal bands that I feel deserve some more recognition in the field, and that are worth checking out if you're not familiar with them. Anyways, thank you for watching. Stay strong. To my brothers and sisters of metal, thank you for watching. This is Required Field signing off. Thank you for watching and goodbye.